inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Being a kingdom-driven entrepreneur is not the same thing as being a Christian who happens to be a business owner. A kingdom-driven entrepreneur is motivated by seeing an increase of the kingdom of God through the work they do in business, and they are propelled forward by operating from the truth of Matthew 6:33. They seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, knowing that all things will be added. So that's why we're here, and I'm so glad that you've joined us today. My guest today is Stefanie Gass, business and podcast coach at StefanieGass.com. Now, if you tend to be achievement and performance driven, like I used to be, and you're struggling to really find that grace-filled pace of working in partnership with God and from a place of rest, listen carefully to this episode. It will be a blessing to you. Stefanie shares her story about how years of grinding it out in business led to her hitting rock bottom. But encountering the goodness of God led her to a place of surrender, a time of rest and restoration, and then to building a thriving business in partnership with him. It's a great conversation. I really consider it a beautiful grace over grind kind of testimony. So listen in and enjoy. Stefanie Gass is here with me on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. What's up, Stefanie?
What's up, Shay? I'm so excited to be here today.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So listen, I was checking out your website, getting to know a little bit about you before we had this chat. And I was like, she has the kind of testimony that people need to hear because you're helping people with starting a podcast and growing an online business, but you started business one way and now you're partnering with God and helping others do the same. So there's a whole story in there that I want to explore with you today.
There is a big, juicy story in there.
Even better that it's a big and juicy story, Stefanie.
And I'm really excited to share it. So I'll dive in and just stop me when you have something you want to dissect or dig into. Yes.
Well, let's just start by you give a little picture about what you're doing in business right now. And then let's talk about just kind of the genesis of where that started, your entrepreneurial journey.
So good. So today I help Christian women start and grow their online businesses. And I help them do it in a way that I believe is God honoring, that glorifies him. And what this kind of has evolved into is me figuring out, which we'll go to in my story, all the ways that weren't honoring God, that we grow a business, the world's way, the hustle, the grind, the endless hours chasing and pushing and striving. And that basically it all imploded for me and led me to this place of like, Lord, what do I do? And then that in turn created what today has become like, oh my gosh, podcasting is this way specifically for my niche, it's Christian women to be able to still have presence in their life and not sacrifice their moral compass and their faith and be able to reach people and grow organically with something that doesn't have a shelf life like social media. And so I help them start podcasts. I help them monetize those shows with a coaching offer or a course offer, because I believe that kingdom-minded women and men, when they show up in their calling and their purpose work, like there is an anointing that they step into. There is an income that's available so they can go do incredible things for God's kingdom while they're here. Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm here to help people really step into that place and not be afraid of that for themselves. And that's what I do today. I have a podcast. Obviously, I have the courses and the coaching that I offer those people to help them get where they really want to go.
Nice. So all of that came from a whole backstory.
Yes.
So take me back to the beginning of your wanting to start and grow in business.
Sure. So I've always been a driven person, an ambitious person. My friend and I joke that we're part of Overachievers Anonymous. she'll be like, hey, I'm having an overachiever anonymous moment. And I'm like, I got you, you know? And so like, that's part of who I am. And I've always been that way from the age of 7 years old, being like, I'm going to be an author and leading the play and being the girl in the front, like telling everybody what to do. Like that's who I've been.
Yes.
And I went into corporate America because that's what we didn't know there was another option as kids. Like my dad was the first one to go to college in his family, and you're going to go to college and that's what you're going to do. You're going to find stability. So that's what I did, even though it was like not who I was.
Yeah.
And so I still achieved in corporate. I ended up being the youngest financial controller of this global company by the age of 27. I was jet setting to Spain and Germany. And, you know, I was a Christian. I would always have called myself a Christian. I was saved at the age of 9 after like, I don't know, that's a whole nother story. Finding the Lord and like how, you know, man, like the enemy tried to take me out even as a child, but found God at 9. And then, you know, didn't know that relationship piece. And so I'm like, yeah, I believe in God, but like went on my own merry way, and definitely self and control and all of those pieces and leaning.
I resonate with all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like work and all of those pieces.
Sure.
So long story short, with the first phase, I got laid off because our company went under here in the plant that we have here. Right. And they're like, we have a job for you in Germany. Do you want to move? And I'm like, actually, no, I'm newly engaged. Like, I love where I live. I don't want to go. And so my fiance at the time, now husband, was like, why don't you try to work from home, figure something out? Like, we want to have kids anyway. Let's see what else is out there for you. And so I thought that that was a good idea. And I kind of, for the first time, was like, ooh, like that feels really right for me. Right,
like, that's what I was going to ask, whether that was even a thought before your husband brought that up. Yeah. Was that an option in your mind? Were you thinking maybe I should kind of, yeah.
It was like, well, how can I do that though? Like there was so much, like there was this huge wall of like, I don't know how to make that work because my identity was corporate for so long. Like my identity had always been work and achievement. So I just carried that to the next thing.
Yeah.
And what happened was my mom actually introduced me to network marketing.
Okay.
And it was new at the time. Like 10 years ago, it wasn't like the rage like it is now. And she's like, hey, I'm going to sell this face cream and be a millionaire. You want to do it with me?
You're like, sounds great. Let's go.
I'm like, let's do it. And so I'm, you know, newly married at this point, and I'm like, let's do this. And so everyone told me, well, that's dumb. You're never going to make it. And I came at them with like, oh, I'll show you that I'm going to make it. And I just went in like a holy terror and blasted everybody. Facebook was still new. Like that still worked. I was at parties. I was never like, I was doing all the things, all hours. I was like full out, and it felt really good at the time. Within 4 years, I hit the top 1% of the company. I hit one of the highest ranks that there are. I walked the stages. I had the big checks. It was like, we have made it. And there were lots of times where my husband's like, man, like you're really unavailable right now. And I'm like, this is for us.
Yes.
Like, I need you to sit down. Like I was so laser focused on like, this is the thing that I have to make happen in my life.
Yeah.
That everything else went to the wayside. And we had a newborn by this time.
That's what I was about to ask. Okay.
We had like I guess he was like about 1 year old at this point. And what happened is interesting. So I started to feel something missing in my life. And obviously we know what that is.
Yes.
And it was the Lord, but I was really like unavailable for a relationship with him because my relationship was my work. And I kept leaning into like, just do more, like just do more. My drinking was at an all-time high, and I come from a long line of alcoholics. And so that was definitely like looming there. Yeah. I had like issues with food and like overeating and emotional eating. And then I had high anxiety. I was like this crazy overfunctioning mess. And I was put together with this wrap of duct tape of like, it's okay though, like just do a little bit more.
Right.
And so I kept going. And what happened, Shay, is that God kept convicting me of like, I don't know that this is right. The way you're doing this doesn't feel good. The way that you're putting everything second, third, like where am I in this story? And so within a year, my income fell to a third of what it was. And it was really interesting because it was like nothing I could do would save it.
Right.
And I kept trying and I wouldn't like accept that, God, you're over there. And like, I kind of see you, but like, I'm not ready.
Yes.
I'm going to keep forcing this to work. And so I kept pouring in and pouring. Nothing I would do would work. Another 6 months went by, Shay, and it was like it had basically crumbled underneath me.
Mm.
And there was this moment here. So at this point, I just had my second son. I'm 60 pounds overweight because I couldn't drink. So I just ate.
Right.
I am sitting there on the couch and I pull up the bank account and there's no money left. And I went to my husband because he was kind of removed from the finances because we were doing great.
Right.
And I was like, hey, we can't pay the bills. And I remember like tears were streaming down my face because I'm starting to understand like, what was this for? Like this 5 years of selling my soul for what? It's led me to this moment of like, there's nothing here. My hands are empty and I've been gripping so tightly to like nothing. And so I go to him and it's so interesting. Like, I think God really works through him in that moment because he said, it's okay. We'll borrow money from Miles' savings account and we'll pay him back later. And like, that wasn't really out of character.
You're like, wait, what?
It's like, excuse me, like, you're not going to flip out. Like, it was
right.
Really
the level of grace in that moment was just like, wow.
Yeah. Like, God kind of was like, look who I really am.
Yeah.
And I did the walk of shame out of the room and I went to the bathroom and I stared at this face that I didn't recognize. I remember black mascara coming down my face. Like, I looked awful. Everything was like a mess. And I just fully broke down in that moment. And I'm sitting there sobbing and I grabbed a notebook and pen. And for the first time, I'm like, God, who am I?
Wow.
Like, who is the woman that you've created me to be? I started writing this letter to God. And I started just journaling these things. And like, we've ever since had a journaling relationship, he and I. It started then. And he said, you are my daughter and you're going to be a present wife and you're going to be a, present mom and grace-filled. And like, you're going to get healthy. You're going to give up alcohol, all these things that were like, wow. Like this vision was painted on a sheet of paper that I was like, that's cute. I have no idea how to become her.
But you received that as this is a word from the Lord. Like you grab a hold of that thing. It wasn't in doubt. You were like, the Lord has spoken. You grabbed hold of that thing.
And you know what's interesting now that you say that? Like there'd been all these moments where I would feel the Holy Spirit's presence, like really thick. And ever since I've been a kid, I've been able to like see things and feel things. And I remember like feeling that again and being like, oh, that's been God.
Yeah.
Like, that's been Holy Spirit this whole time. And like, I didn't know it.
That moment of revelation.
It was like the moment of like tangible.
Yes.
I'm here with you. Just let me in.
Yes.
And so that was the day I'm like, I'm done. Like it was so rock bottom. My identity had been this position, this success. Like it was ripped out. Like there was nothing left. There was no, you kind of made it. It was like so obviously clear that this thing was not working. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had these boys and I'm like, oh, now I'm also this mom and have to like figure this piece out. There was all of this stuff. And I was like, God, I can't do this. Like, I am completely in the pit of like nothingness and I need you to help me rise back up. I don't know what to do. So I remember one step at a time, I kind of like laid business down. So I'm like, I can't even. And I started going to a gym I couldn't afford. Getting my health back in order. Cause I'm like, I'll show up. They had a daycare that you could do 2 hours. So I'd put them in, I'd work a little or like try journal and then I would work out. And we started going to church. And I remember a couple of months later, I'm standing in worship and we had gone off and on, like for Christmas and like, but I'm standing there like, okay, I'm really committed. Like, God, what do I do? Like, how do I get to know you? And I'm standing in worship that day and this song came on. I don't remember what song it was. And I just remember like full out surrender and like raise my arms and like fully gave it over to him. And I just truly felt like the Holy Spirit drop in like another level. And I'm just standing there weeping. And I can only imagine what my husband was like, probably terrified. I don't know. And I was changed.
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm done drinking. I'm done with these idols in my life. Like that was the first moment. There's stories and stories here of like, started breaking
encounter after encounter.
I started breaking up with addiction after addiction in my life. I started making different choices because God was making choices beside me.
Yes.
And so over time, about a year after that, I got called back into the business space. He's like, hey, let's do this. And I'm like, okay, God, but I'm like scared. So I was doing some lives on Facebook, easing my way back in, showing what it's like to be a mom and work at the same time. And I'm all about like, show up authentically. Like I show up with my hair a mess and like, I'm here for it. I don't, my kids will come in the back and I'm like, what's up? Like, and so I was kind of like normalizing the mom work thing.
But you didn't have a business. There was no particular business in mind as you were doing this and just kind of showing up. Okay.
No, I'm like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was kind of just talking about how I had grown a network marketing business on social media, not knowing where it was going to go. Anyway, people started asking like, hey, do you coach? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Sure. Let's get a call together. And so I started coaching and I was doing some blogging. I was kind of like confused. Who are you? I was doing some blogging on really random stuff. And anyway, I started praying. I'm like, Lord, what is this? I'm YouTubing, blogging. I don't know who I am. Like, I feel better about myself. Like, what is this business? And in 2018, I went to sleep and I had this very vivid prophetic download from the Lord, and it was start a podcast. It was very clear. I knew it was from him. The ones from him always come in really vivid and they stay with me for a few hours and I'll write them down. I'm like, wow. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what that should be, but I had a $20 Amazon mic. I did some YouTubing. I plugged it in and I'm like, let's do this. And I started talking into the microphone.
I don't know what I'm podcasting about per se, but let's go.
Yeah. I called it the Mompreneur Mastermind Show because it was all about being a mom, growing a business, how I use Facebook to grow a really successful business. And that's where I started.
We were talking about your journey from your former business and what you learned through that. Okay.
Yep. And it never really felt right, that content, because I was no longer doing that.
But it gave you something to talk about.
Yeah. And it really started being like, oh, wait, like I'm really talking about like empowering women in business. And then what happened was the podcast ended up exploding. In a year, I had like over 100,000 downloads. I made over 6 figures.
Okay, that's not normal. So that's not normal. No, that's not normal.
No, it like blew up. It's like God's hand was on the thing.
Yes.
And I'm over here like, what are you doing, Lord? And the coaching business exploded, had over 6 figures in coaching revenue. And I was like, something's up with this podcasting thing. And
wait, I have a question. Wait.
Yeah.
So when people were asking you, do you coach? Were people asking you for business coaching? When people from like the network marketing industry were wanting business coaching, is that what was happening?
Okay. So what was happening, this is cool. So what was happening is these women would get on the call and be like, I don't know what my business should be. Can you help me? And I'd be like, sure. And so they'd start telling me all the things they're good at. Like, I'm good at this. I'm good at this. I can do this. And they'd be so confused. They'd hand me all this stuff and I'd take it in and I'd hand them back 2 sentences that were like, oh, well, you're a fitness coach and you help moms of littles. Here's what it would be called. Here's what your tagline would be. And here's what the content would be that you'd create. And like, I could immediately see people's thing. And they started to call it clarity coaching. So I was going to say,
they sounded like that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
And I would air these on the podcast, Shay.
Okay.
And so people would hear it on the show and be like, how do I get one of those? And
were you realizing the gift of what was happening in the midst of this? Were you seeing the thread, or you were just doing it? You're just out here just doing.
I was just doing it. And it was about like 4 months of that before it clicked of like, oh, I would call myself a clarity coach at first. I'm like, I'm a clarity coach on what your business would be. So that thing like blew up. And then people would be like, cool, what do I do to grow it? And that was so perfectly God, because I was like, you're going to podcast because I know how to do this. I know how to show you how to blow up a show.
Yes.
And all the while, I'm still trying to grow on social media and all this stuff. I'm still addicted to social.
Right.
I'm on 15 stories a day. We have 750 likes a post. Like I'm like, it's still there too. It's social and it's podcasting.
Yes.
And so, but the whole time I'm like, Lord, this is you. Like this, obviously I couldn't have done this on my own. Like, this is you, you're doing all of this. Like, what do I do next? And so I felt convicted to start a podcasting course. So I started the podcasting course, which I still have today. It's our number one product. And people that would go through the clarity coaching would go take Podcast Pro University and they'd start their podcast. And that thing blew up as well. And the coolest part was through that whole thing, I kept feeling this conviction of like, let social go.
Yes.
Let it go. And I'd be like, no.
How am I going to get more clients? Like, right.
But so I'm like, if I know anything, it's to do this God's way. And so I started to do weekend detoxes. I would delete it on the weekends and like something would change in me. I'm at peace. I feel so great about my life. I can see my kids. I'm like, wow, I can't see you when my phone is anywhere near me, you know?
Yes.
And I loved it so much. And so I did that for about a year. And then I felt the Lord really impress upon me, like, get off for a month and let's see what I can do. So I told my whole community about it. I'm like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to get off and see what happens. So I got off of Instagram for a month and I didn't like it anyway. I felt like it was such an addiction in my life. But I thought we needed it for business.
Right. So you're like ready to let it go from one perspective, but also feeling a little nervous about it from the business perspective.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought, well, I've created all this traction. Like I've got to stay there, which is their game. It's the end goal. It's like, let me deceive you into staying so that you have to be here every 5 seconds of your life in order to maintain traction that actually doesn't create any dollar bills, is what I've discovered. So after a month, I get back in, down to 23 likes on this, like it's completely dead. And I'm like, why would I build something the same way that I did all these years ago that isn't mine? It isn't sustainable. And if I'm gone for 2 seconds, it's gone. Like, thank you, Lord, for showing me that. Not only that, but the podcast still grew. Email list still grew. Everything, revenue, all of it was still growing, Shay. And so I said, okay, Instagram, you're gone for 6 months. So we kept on. And then
wait, I want to stop here for a sec.
Okay.
So I want to make sure people are catching some things that I'm catching from your story, which is that there was this willingness to take a step without your own clarity, to be clear. Like without your own clarity, it's like, I'm going to take this step forward. I really feel like I heard podcast. So I'm going to just start this podcast. You didn't have a whole blueprint and framework for the podcast and where it was going to head after, or even the fullness around what you were going to be talking about and how it was all going to work. But you took the step forward. And the process of doing that, then as you're having then clients and people came to you asking for a service that then you're discovering the skill set and you're seeing favor on that. And then you're getting more clarity on how you handling your podcast. And then even with the social media, it was like, I'll take these steps. And Holy Spirit, God's so good. He didn't say, get off completely. He met you at take a weekend, take a month, and you were willing to take that step. And then in the process of that, then you see what he's trying to show you the whole time, which is you don't need the thing in which you think you need. You got me, and you got favor on the thing that I'm aligning you with. Right. And you're seeing all the goodness happen each time you were willing, by the way, to take the step without knowing what's on the other side. And that's important because you wouldn't have seen those things if you weren't willing to show up to take that step.
And isn't that always how he works?
Yes.
I mean, you know, imagine like Simon Peter, he's over there fishing. He's like, this is what I do, fishing. And the Lord's like, get out the boat and come with me and fish for men. And he's like, how exactly is that going to work for me though? Like, am I actually going to get any gold for my, like, you know, it never makes sense when God's like, do a thing. And you're like, everything in you says that doesn't make sense. The timing isn't right. Where's the blueprint? Did I hear you right? And we get all up in our humanness and we decide that maybe it wasn't for me or maybe later. And like the proof of what he's trying to do through your life is exactly what Shay's highlighting right now. It's you got to give him your yes and take that big audacious step of, I don't know how this plays out, because the point is to glorify him.
That's it.
And so in order for my podcast to do what it's done and all of these things, like it's too big to be me. It could only be God. And that's how you know, like, and now I'm like, one of my favorite verses, like, this is the way walking it, 30:21. Yes. I'm like, I'm just walking blind behind you, Lord. That's all I know to be true.
Like, I can see you and that's enough.
That's it.
But here's the other thing too, Stefanie. I think about the goodness of God for that stage. What made that yes much easier for you was that time that you put the business down and you cultivated greater intimacy with God. That creates the strengthening on the inside to be able to say, I love to have all the things. I like to strategize and I want to achieve and all of those things. But even though I can't see how I'm going to achieve in this, my answer is yes. It was that the beauty of that time that you had.
Yeah, that overnight success that sounds like, what happened. It's like that was really 6-7 years in the making of a lot of pain going through like losing that business and finding myself and the struggles of like, God knows when you're ready, because imagine like handing me this big fruitful business when like I'm over here with an alcohol and food issue, you know, like I couldn't deal with it back then. And so he's like, he knows your timing so beautifully and perfectly. Like I know so many people listening right now, they're in like the pre-piece of my story of like, I'm in the messy middle, or I'm in the beginning, or like, why isn't this working? Or like, where's God's hand on my thing? And the truth is like, have you fully surrendered that maybe it's not even the business? Maybe it's not anything to do with that. There's something else in you that he's trying to cleanse, and he's trying to heal, and he's trying to come in and redeem. And when you let him in and you let him do that work, the fruit of that blossoms in all these other areas of your life.
That's it. It's holistic. It's not just business. It's not just you as a mom, you as a wife. It's all of you.
Yeah.
I love it. So now I want to talk. So that all of that was a genesis to the business that you do now. Now I want to know about now with this business. Now you're like, oh, okay, we're in alignment with God now. This is what we're doing. What did it then look like for you? And even now to partner with God, even in the back end operations of doing what you do, like what's that flow for you? And what was it like when you first started, and what have you grown into?
Yes, those are such great questions. So I think when I first started, I was maybe even a little bit afraid of like, because I'm a leader, like I'm going to push into that. And I was a little bit afraid of it, of like, oh, I can't trust myself because I'm going to idolize business again, or I'm going to whatever. And like, so I had to work through that. And thankfully God's so good. And he brought me like wise counsel, and he brought me people that helped me through that of like, you know who you are now. It is okay to go. It is okay. Because even though I was going, I was like, oh, like I was a little bit afraid of success. Yeah. I was afraid of success. And so that's how it kind of was at first. But as I started to gain my footing and see like, oh no, he keeps blessing this. And I would just pray, Shay, I'm like, if this is what you want, slam the door. I'm here for it. Like, if this is not where I should be, close that door. And he did sometimes. And then he would just readjust me.
Give me an example of that.
Yeah. So there's some really incredibly powerful, awesome, driven people in the podcasting space.
Right.
That I've met along the way. And I love everyone. Yeah. I don't care if you're a Christian, not a Christian, whatever, like I'm here for you. And I've learned so much from them in different ways. Well, one time I was invited to join this mastermind program, and I had prayed. I didn't really hear from God clearly on it, but it was definitely like a question mark for me because it was not Christian at all. Most people in there were pretty new age, but lots of connections in there. So I was like, I'll try it. So I got in there. It was okay for a while, but I started to feel like my discernment alarms going off of like, not that I was being impressed upon, but more like, I can't even say anything in love here because I'm like triggered, like this isn't working for me. And I'm like, God, I'm going to need you to slam the door. And like, as soon as I just made that prayer of like, I don't know that this is right. Like I got 100% clarity of like, you're free to go, So I was like, hey, I don't want to be here in a nice way. They didn't know. And so that's an example of like, sometimes you don't hear super clearly from him on a business thing or whatever. So when I don't, I go ahead and move forward, but I'm super open to like hearing from him and discerning through and like paying attention to how I'm feeling. And he will clarify like, and sometimes there's a lesson, like he may have wanted me to plant some seeds and then get out. And that's why I didn't hear from him at first.
Absolutely.
So I've been trusting of that, but that's an example of that. And now the way that I see it is I'm running this company, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm managing it all, right? I'm here and I'm podcasting and I've got a team that I'm managing and we're doing things, but God is the CEO. Yeah. So the way that I envision it is like, before I make a big decision, I'm going to go to the top floor and I'm going to go to his awesome corner office I'm going to knock on that big old door. It's probably wood. I don't know. Something glorious. It's glowing. I don't know.
Some glorious mahogany.
Yes. And I'm like, hey, God, can I have a business meeting real quick? And I come in and I'm like, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Like, can we talk about it? Yes. And so for me, it's like, I'm journaling with God. I'm discerning through, I'm looking at scripture. One of the hardest lessons I've learned is also to run it by some wise counsel before I do, sometimes we put the cart before the horse as achievers. Anyways. And so I'm seeing what God has to say, because as CEO, he either blesses the thing, looks good, stamp of approval, get after it. Or he's like, I think I have a better idea. Let's work together.
Yes.
Or he's like, that's actually a no. That's not going to be in the best benefit for you and the company and the people that we serve. And that's how I see it. And I've tried and I work so hard on having that mindset before any decision, big or small. The other big thing that I'm so serious about is giving God the best of me, which what I mean by that is just like with tithing and you're giving your first fruits, like I want to give my first fruit to God of me and my time. And so every morning, even when I'm like, I should go sit down and get some work done, I'm like, nope, you're going to get grounded in the word. You're going to have a conversation with God. You're going to pray with him. Just spend some time with why we're doing this business in the first place every single day.
It's good.
And that really makes a huge difference in how I show up and why I'm showing up. And it doesn't allow me to compare as much or get into the humanness of like, this is hard. This is a hard space to be in. And no matter how successful you are as an entrepreneur, there's someone always doing better than you. There's someone always that's going to come in and make you feel like, oh, I should do that. Or I wish I was like that. But when you're in the word with God, like your perspective is on, this is not mine, your eternal ROI, not like your personal financial.
That's right.
So that's what I see. That's who he is in this business.
That's good. Now, because you have a team, there's also other dynamics, right? Because then there's the perspective of me as, this is a business that I'm stewarding and I'm having my business meetings with God and I'm getting direction. And there's a whole nother level when it's not just you, but it's also you and a whole team. And being able to kind of create a kingdom culture. And I don't mean a Christian culture, but just kind of being a kingdom culture in the place, whether people who work for you are believers or not. I don't know what the dynamics are. You can talk about that in a second. But I want to know what you've learned in terms of how to even be a kingdom leader to others who may or may not kind of approach things the way you approach things with business and decision-making and those types of things. What have you been learning and experiencing?
I've been learning a lot. We've had growing a team now for about 3 years, slowly but surely. And at this point, we've got 4 people on the team, and we actually have 12 interns that intern for us, and they earn scholarships towards what they want. And so
they're short-term interns?
Short-term internship. Okay. And what's been really cool is learning that, trusting God in your team process, because what's been hard for me is like, oh, someone isn't here forever. Like, they don't want to be with me forever. Like, like, get all loyal and lovey-dovey, and they're like, what? Like that? No.
Yes.
And so that's been a challenge for me is understanding that God's timing is perfect, not just for me and what I want, but also for people that come through.
Yes. So good.
And it's helped me have a lot of let go of control a little bit of I'm just going to trust this thing. It's okay if someone doesn't stay. God has the perfect people that are here and that will be here with me. And he's shown me so much about trusting him through the team process.
Yes.
And as far as leadership is concerned, I just constantly try to remind myself, how would Jesus deal with this? Because we constantly want to get frustrated or, expect too much from someone, or it's he would be clear.
Yeah.
Very clear. He would have grace, and he would have these expectations that he would deliver in a lot of love.
Yeah.
And so it's how do I embody that as a leader for these team members? And I'm getting better and better at it, but it's
good. It's a process.
Yeah.
I love it. So then what would you say is kind of in this current season right now for you in the early part of 2023? What is your current stretch? How is God stretching you right now?
Oh, yeah. God is stretching me to do less. So in 2022, we had a moment where I was like, "Woo, shiny thing." Like when you ask me, like, are you a successful company? I'm like, yeah, like we're done. Like I know what we sell. I know what we do. Our messaging is on point. Like everything is so clear. Right. And when everything is so clear and it's working, you're like, what else should I do?
It's the entrepreneurial brain at work. It really is.
It's a visionary at work, right? And
yes.
So I'm like, oh, let's do that. And I invested a bunch of money in like blogging, and I invested a bunch of money in this stuff over here. And like, I just got so distracted. And I went to I have a girls group that we meet. We're a peer-led mastermind. And we go to an annual thing and we do all of our goals and we basically go through our businesses and do these things.
Right.
And they're like, what's the ROI on all that thing? Like that project that you did. And I'm like,
goose egg.
Well, they're like, what
although a goose egg nowadays might be more valuable.
It's like, oh, wow. I got so distracted, Yes. And so I came out of that event like, I have cuts to make. I've got projects to lay down. Like I got a lot of cleanup to do. And so we spent all of December and we have another about 4 weeks left. Me and my, operations manager, in essence, like cleaning everything up. We just cleaned it all up. We are simplifying. And like, there are only 2 things I have to focus on in this company. And I discovered that. I'm like, there's 2 revenue builders. There's one thing that blows up the following. It's the podcast. Like, why am I doing all this extra stuff? And so I got kind of back to grassroots again and got regrounded. And like, my word of the year is focus. I heard focus. I heard simplify. And I'm feeling really a lot of peace about it too.
Yes.
Because it's also what I teach. Like, God has to constantly remind us, like, hey, this is what your person's going through. I'm going to take you through it one more time, bring you back home.
Won't he do that though?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's beautiful though, because that focus, it's like you are multiplying in your simplification and then it gets complicated. And then now you're being brought right back to the place where the multiplication was, which was in your focus and in your simplification. So that's really good. I love it. I love it. So then what would you say you're most excited about so far, for the year that's ahead with business?
What I'm most excited about is knowing for the first time ever with so much clarity, what my listener really, truly desires and wants in her heart. Because now it's like, I have this answer for her. Like, it felt like a little bit fuzzy all this time. And I think clarity in your business is a constant evolution.
Yes.
But it got to this point of like, we went through 4,000 lines of copy that my avatar had put in the Facebook questions or emailed us. And we found like this core concept of like, I just want to grow a business that makes money. That's
real simple.
And I'm a Christian woman. That was it. That's all. Like, that was the final like end goal of who they were and what they wanted. I'm like, and like, I have this answer for her. And it felt so good to be like, I'm just going to clean up and simplify and really like, so instead of being like, I can help you this way and this way and this way, it was like, here is your way, walk in it. It's this step and this step, and we are done. And I can get you there. Yeah. And that felt really, really good.
I love it. That's so good. So you guys, make sure you check out the Stefanie Gass podcast, but shout out where they should go to connect with the work that you're doing further.
Yeah. So for sure, come listen to the show, the Stefanie Gass show, and it's STEFANIEGASS. And StephanieGass.com. I've got some free fun stuff and a free workshop. If you're like, oh, could podcasting work to grow my business? I have that workshop over there on the website, and come check it out. Just come browse the website, see what resource looks like the best fit for you, and come hang out and connect.
I love it. And what I also love about it is that your focus is on helping people to do that and to do that God's way and to do that with God. Yeah. So that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for joining me, Stefanie. So good.
You're welcome. Bye.
Such a great chat with Stefanie Gass. And now I have with me Mr. Bynes, my dear husband and our CEO. What's going on, Phil?
All is well.
Good. So we are ready for some takeaways.
Good. I'll try not to step on the gas through these takeaways.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, did I do that? Sorry, Stefanie. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
So my first takeaway, God's plan for us is good only, right? But if we belong to him, yet try to hold too tight to the empty things of this world, we may find ourselves hitting rock bottom before we enter into his good. And so that's from the ideal of, like, God was trying to take some things from Stefanie when she was in her network marketing business, and she wouldn't release them. And eventually she had to hit a point of rock bottom so that she could surrender, and God can get her in the direction in which he wanted to get her all along.
Yeah.
But I wanted to use her stories as a point of, as a cautionary tale. We don't have to hit rock bottom all the time. You know, if we see what he's trying to do and we release and get on his program, we won't hit rock bottom before we make our transitions.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Point number 2, follow the Lord's leading. Even when you don't understand why he is leading you, he wants to guide you to your kingdom destination, but he will not take the wheel and drive. No matter what Carrie Underwood says, he's not going to take the wheel and drive. He's leaving it for you to drive, right? But he wants to guide you.
Are you going to sing?
Huh?
Were you going to sing?
Jesus, take the wheel, take it from my hands. And Jesus says, no, you drive. Worry about yourself. Okay. Point number 3. I'm sorry. Moving on. Point number 3. Keep it simple, right? And what came to mind was Psalms 103, 13 and 14. And so I'm going to read that scripture for you. As a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. For he knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. So basically, I'm saying this without saying that I just gave you the scripture. Like, don't think of yourself higher than you are, right? You don't have to do all the things.
You don't have to do all the
things. He knows our frame. He knows that we're dust. He's only given us a portion of the puzzle for us to do as kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, and let the other people do the stuff that they're supposed to do. Don't try to do all the things yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's good.
Uh-huh.
I'm still stuck on point 2.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So funny.
People couldn't see it, but maybe they heard you. You were laughing the whole time I tried to do my point 3. So unprofessional.
These are the things that can't be hidden as we shift to the new format of the podcast, which will be on video. So all of your shenanigans, and then even me when I get to join you guys, will be live and on video for everyone to enjoy. It'll be fun though.
I'll probably behave myself more when I'm with Latara. Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. Oh my goodness. For those listening, listen, we have a great resource available to you. If you really want to dive in a little bit more, take that next step in terms of growing and engaging God about your business, getting his heart and mind concerning how you show up in the marketplace, I want to invite you to go to meetingwithgod.biz. That's meetingwithgod.biz, and grab a free resource that we have available to you. It's called Seek First the Kingdom, 12 powerful questions to connect you with God's mind and heart and business. So you can grab that for free. Don't just grab it, read it. Don't just read it, but engage God with it. And then don't just engage God with it, but then take action in faith with what he shows you. Meetingwithgod.biz. Mr. Bynes, anything that you want to share before we take off?
No, ma'am.
All right, very good. Well, we'll talk to you more next week on the next episode of the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. Take care and God bless.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.